The judge said that he was disturbed that I thought I should see my child. He said I couldn't have formed a bond, that I couldn't possibly be any kind of a mother, and that I was a stepmother at best. If I had any less respect for the courts than I have, I would have told him off right there, and informed him that I'm a stepmother at the least. That is the bare minimum that you legally have to recognize me as. And in fact, it goes a lot deeper than that. And in fact, I am more of a mother to my son than his egg donor is. Because what a mother does is put aside their own selfish interests, their own everything, and put their son first. They sacrifice to make sure that their son has a roof over his head and food in his pantry and a relationship with his parent. Not for the parent's benefit, but for his benefit. A real mother doesn't use their child as a pawn to scam those things out of other people or to get money or sympathy or whatever else you want to get. And then just write them off. Just not want to have anything to do with their child. That's not what a mother does. And this is relevant to this journal because I had to go back to court on this without Eric present. So you can imagine what it's like being a stepmother who loves their son, who considers the step part to be the formality and considers the child to be their own, and not have that kind of legal support that comes from having the parent who has just as much legal right to make decisions for his child as the other bio parent. Right there and physically present, supporting you. She filed a frivolous protective order against me over a 2-minute interaction that not only did she blow way out of proportion, but happened to be the only interaction we have had with each other in, I want to say, over 2 years. And it was an interaction where she was following me. She had a lot of people with her, and they were trying to intimidate me. I know that they were trying to hurt me. They were waiting for me to get in a position where I would not be protected. And they were, at the time of the interaction, blocking me from exiting the building. And I told them to move. And that's what she filed on. She filed because I told them to move, and she added a bunch of, let's call it flavor, to that petition, and tried to make me look like a threat. And of course I had evidence proving that the flavor was actually not true, but the judge still decided, even though he had ruled that there was no stalking, no harassment, nothing illegal going on, and even though he had clarified that there were really no grounds to get an order on the grounds she was claiming, because she was claiming we were connected by marriage. We're not connected by marriage just because I am married to her child's father. That's not what connected by marriage means to the law. But she claimed that we were connected by marriage. And the judge said, no, that's not true. No, that's not proper grounds. But we're going to continue this out for, well, essentially to the end of the year, like past the end of the year. Just because he feels disturbed that I think I should be able to see my son. And the last time she tried to do something like this, I did have Eric there. And I did have him say, I heard him say, no, you don't have any right to keep her away from him because I'm his father and I want her around him. I think she's a good influence on him. I trust her completely. But this time, I didn't. And because of that, I am now not allowed to contact him. And the thing is, he wasn't even there during this interaction. He wasn't even present. He didn't see it. He didn't hear it. It plainly wasn't directed at him. And yet, she just added his name on anyway. She added my son's name on just because she's been grasping at straws for years. And the first time she did this, it was based on me telling him that his father loved him and that his father was okay and he loved him. It was another less than a minute interaction. At the time, I had been tutoring him for as long as the schools were shut down for COVID. I taught him to read, he knew me, but she made it look to the courts like I was just a stranger that came up to him in church and started talking about his father. Now, the reason I did that was because it was fresh after the separation. Eric had been chased away from his home under threat of death by you-know-who, and he didn't want that kind of conflict, that kind of violence around his son, so he decided not to be in that situation and to go pursue legal ways of getting his son back, of making sure that she had to comply with his right to see him. And eventually he did. Eventually he did get an order saying that he had just as much right as she did. But at the time, it was all over town that she was telling the child that his father was dead. And who tells that to a little boy? He was 7. You don't say that. Even if you don't mean it, but I'm pretty sure, knowing her, I'm pretty sure she meant it. And when I saw him before church, and he looked like a little boy who had been told his father was dead. So I stopped. I said, your father's all right and he loves you. And he got the biggest smile on his face, and he wanted to come over to where I was sitting, but of course his bio mom and the lady sitting next to them that kept touching his hair wouldn't let him. I don't know what that was about still to this day, but I stayed for the whole service. I didn't try to talk to them again. I stayed about an hour afterward, had a pleasant conversation with the pastor and the Sunday school teacher, and about something completely separate. That was about a Facebook post that needed to be taken down. Um, but yeah, nothing else happened. And then I went home, and a couple days later, I found out that she blew that incident way out of proportion and took it to the courts. And the courts saw me as basically just some person from out of town. They don't know who I am. They don't know that I've been a safe person to go to when mommy was yelling at daddy for a really long time. Like, since he was really little, like, he was a little baby, you know? He couldn't talk. His own mom couldn't understand what he was saying, and I was just there. I mean, I taught him to read. I helped teach him math, but let's be honest, he was good at math anyway. Um, his father taught him so much. He was ahead in all his classes by the time I started teaching him. I cannot take credit for that, but I did teach him to read, and I still have the book we were reading out loud saved in my phone, saved to the same place where we left off reading. And it was my side of the mountain. It was a good book. And I don't know. I think that's just what happens when the courts are so out of touch with reality that they fail to realize that beyond the legal right of who sees what and when and why and where and what the legal reasoning is and how they're going to carve up the time between one parent and another, they forget that people are still human, that they still make connections that matter regardless of whether they're technically mother or stepmother or father or what have you. And they forget that children are human. Children aren't assets to be divided. They're people who need to know the people they come from. And it's just so inherently wrong to deny a child a relationship with his father. It's wrong to deny a child a relationship with a stepmother.